Regular meeting to order, August 13th, 2024. I show the time at 6 o'clock, and I show we have everyone here except for Kim, who is joining us Zoom, I guess. She's up there? Okay. So first off, I need a motion to consider allowing Kim to participate remotely.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Thank you, Joe.
Next up, we have the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes, additions, or?
I have two items. One is to add the consent agenda number 9, which is consider amending the scope of services of prior agreement with Acro Services for additional surveying services, not to exceed an additional $20,000, and authorize manager to execute contract for additional services.
Okay, and that was discussed before, that's why you're putting it on the consent?
Yeah, Hunter requested that.
Okay.
And then second item, just to note that there's an updated title of consent agenda item number 6.
Item number 6 on the consent agenda?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, John.
Just that it's an updated title from
Updated, right,
previously.
okay. All right, anything else?
Nope, not for me.
Andy? Okay, so we striking, are we tabling?
When we get to it, we will.
Okay, all right.
Actually, just one other thing to mention, we may have to push the sheriff's report a little bit later. Sheriff Gazaya is involved in another meeting, so
Okay,
it might be a little bit
so
later.
if it comes to that, we'll just do that on the fly, so,
Correct.
all right,
You guys can skip it and come back to it if you need to.
all right. And Kim, you don't have anything? I think you're good, right?
I'm good. Thank you.
So I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Adoption of the previous, no, we have previous minutes first, before Pledge of Allegiance. My apologies. See, this is what happens when Kim's not here. She's usually kicking me. We have adoption of the previous minutes. Did you guys have a chance to review all those?
Yes.
Any questions? Good to go? All right, need a motion to approve the adoption of the previous minutes.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we have Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Nice little echo there. All right, next up, we have public comment period. Do we have anyone signed in to speak?
We do. Before we proceed to those, I just want to note that we do have submitted public comments that will be in the minutes. You guys have already been emailed these. We have 2 separate comments from Lauren Thomas of 3025 Groves Edge Lane, and 1 submitted comment from Chris Komisky of 312 Painted Turtle Court.
Okay.
First up for those speaking tonight is Tori Komisky of 312 Painted Turtle Court.
And how many do we have speaking?
Just 2.
Okay. Just a reminder, if you've signed in, you wish to address the village council, only signed in prior to the beginning of the meeting will be allowed to speak. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. The council may request that one person speak on behalf of large groups expressing the same opinion. The public comment period is limited to 30 minutes. Speakers shall approach the podium when called and state their name and address for the record, and submitted comments shall not be read aloud but shall be distributed to the council's membership and attached to the minutes. So I'll need a timer. Who wants to volunteer for that? Okay.
3 minutes.
Thanks.
2, sorry, 3 minutes. Go.
Tori, you're up.
3 minutes.
Tori Komisky, 312 Painted Turtle Court. I am here again tonight to respectfully request that the Village Council vote to decommission the Preserve Marvin Creek Connector project. In good faith, I and others have been trying to help the Village Council understand the many errors that were made along the way that have gotten us all to where we stand now. We are now at a crossroads in which we can no longer continue trying to educate and give grace in an effort to help conserve valuable public resources and avoid litigation. I have notified all council with supporting evidence since January so that the council would not continue to allocate any significant further resources toward this project, whether that be taxpayer dollars, staff time, or legal expense. At the time, minimal public funds had been spent on the proposed project. However, on July 25th, the council voted to resume the costly project, and unfortunately, that vote was an affirmative action that requires us to respond in a legal manner going forward. We have offered a very fair compromise to the council in which we would not seek any attorney's fees or damages in exchange for a speedy decommissioning of this project, and assurance that going forward, guardrails would be put in place so that an error of this nature would be unlikely to happen again. That expires at 9 a.m. tomorrow. What should Marvin's priorities be? The safety of our residents, especially the children of Marvin. Much like many of the dedicated parents across our Marvin community, I am a regular volunteer at our school. I just completed a 2-year term on the NC Star Board. I serve on several committees, volunteer my time as a room mother, and have even supported Let Me Run as an assistant coach. The heart of our community lies within the amazing schools all of our children have the privilege to attend here in Marvin. I can say firsthand that I am so appreciative of the amazing teachers, administration, and staff that work so hard to ensure that our children are not only being educated each day, but also looked after like family and being protected with the highest safety standards. Also, the families that work together every day to support our schools and each other. The children of this community should be all of our #1 priority. I can tell you right now that I do not feel that your actions are keeping the children of our community safe. Until this year, I've never had to interact with the police due to feeling endangered at our home or in my neighborhood. Officer West here has kindly helped me at least twice. I, of course, thanked him those times, but would like to thank him again publicly. The first time Officer West was called to our home was when a man threatened my husband with violence within earshot of myself and 2 of my young children. And once, just a few weeks ago, when a neighbor of mine woke on a Sunday morning to find a tent set up in the woods behind her property, the new proposed trail location. In addition, we've had a grown man driving a full-size motorcycle down the sidewalk next to our home where children play and ride bikes. And just last week, when I walked out next to our home, an ungroomed, shirtless man made a sexual comment toward me. This uptick has been noticeable since the VOM inappropriately published the private Marvin Creek Trail, both on their website as well as on Go Bond materials, presenting our private trail as though it is public, as well as showing the proposed trail is completed on Go Bond documents that were posted on the internet and advertised publicly. Please stop trying to place this unnecessary and illegal trail in Marvin Creek, wasting community resources and disrupting the home where my children live. Families do not need their homes connected to a bar, and we do not need our homes connected to a 120-space public parking lot. We do not need this expensive trail that duplicates existing infrastructure. Residents
15
already
seconds.
have. I apologize.
Yeah, I know you have 15 seconds. I'll
Okay,
give you 15
last
more
sentence.
seconds.
Residents already have access via the existing sidewalk systems that go in front of people's homes and do not invade their privacy, safety, or their property rights. Thank you, and I apologize for going over.
No worries. Thank you. All right, next up, who do we have?
Next up is Chris Komisky, 312 Painted Turtle Court.
Hello. My name is Chris. I'm a 5-year resident of Marvin. I'm an intellectual property attorney, and I'm a dad of 3 young children. At home, I can be a bit of a clown dad with my kids, silly faces, juggling, and dad jokes, of course. So I'll start with a joke, since the rest of this will be challenging for you all to face, because it's hard news. Some say an attorney's worst client is themselves, and I don't know about that, but I know who an attorney's 2 worst clients are. That is my wife, Tori. We've gotten lots of unique opportunities to work together to oppose your wasting of village resources on this illegal easement. In performing an objective legal analysis, it is often useful to play devil's advocate, to step outside of your perspective and take on the perspective of your opponent. Then you try to make their position as strong as possible, and then you see how you can oppose it best. These kind of opponent processing opportunities are common in litigation and pre-litigation work. I know that. But rarely are they encouraged in marriage, and I can tell you why. I've had to stand across the table from my wife and assume the position of the village council that seemingly feels entitled to send in backhoes and ask questions later as long as they put coffee with council meetings on the calendar. It's not enough. I'll tell you about my educational background. We've been trying to educate the council and the village attorney, you sir, all year as to the clear illegality of the easement based on the language of our CCRs that attach to our deed, giving us a property right to stop you from proceeding with building on the Marvin Creek HOA land. You should listen because I have relative expertise. I've been teaching complicated science and math concepts to undergraduates at places like my alma mater, Rutgers, Go Knights. And since graduating law school in 2010, I've gained legal expertise in property law, contract interpretation, and enforcement and litigation of contracts. This easement is clearly illegal based on common sense and the zero defense that you, sir, the Village of Marvin attorney, that you refuse to look at me with those eyes. Yes, sir. You've been disposed of. Each time you raised yours, I've shot them down. You know that, I know that, and the public knows that because our texts are available to them. Your first try to defend the legality of the easement was to propose that our notwithstanding provision should lose because there is a provision that is in conflict with it and is purportedly more precise, you said. You said you did pretty well in law school also. You also told me that, that you had done really well in law school, I think it was. You, sir, you could not recover your defense, though, when I presented you with the counter that it's a well-understood principle in contract law that the use of a notwithstanding is a clear expression of the party's intent that it dominate over all conflicting provisions in the agreement. Every first-year law student should know that. You should know that, sir. You should counsel this council on that. There's an example between parents, and I want to hop to the second item where Spencer Chaplin here, I'm sorry. As you can imagine, this has been pretty hard for our family. Thank you. 47F, as you know, you didn't have a good defense to that either. You told me that that was the way, that you had a reason why you guys could proceed and you couldn't. I told you it was subject to the CCRs, and you still have not provided me with an opinion. Kim Vandenberg said that she provided, that you guys had no opinions, that said it was illegal.
I think that's
and you had
time.
two. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
Also, the 35-second efficient
Thank you.
emails. Everybody should read about them. Thank you so much.
All right. Next up, we have presentations, and let me see here. Sorry, it's not connecting here. Give me a second. All right. I want to read this. We have a person here we're going to honor for a thing, but I'd like to read this before I read the plaque. I was told to be very careful with this. So this is a resolution in RS-2024-08-01, resolution in appreciation of Bob Nuncamp service to the Marvin community. Whereas the Village of Marvin desires to recognize and honor board members of the village for dedicated and distinguished contributions to the community. And whereas Bob Nuncamp was appointed to serve on the Parks, Recreation, and Greenways Board on Tuesday, February 13th, 2018 by unanimous vote of the Village Council. And whereas Bob Nuncamp was subsequently reappointed to continue to serve on the Parks, Recreation, and Greenways Board in 2018 and 2021, also by unanimous votes of the Village Council. And whereas in the course of his service on the Parks, Recreation, and Greenways Board, Mr. Nuncamp continually provided expertise on wildlife and plant life. And whereas Mr. Nuncamp established Marsh, the Marvin area for the restoration and sustainability of wildlife habitats, a local chapter of North Carolina Wildlife Federation serving the 28173 zip code in 2019, and whereas Mr. Nuncamp worked with Marsh to register the Village of Marvin as a community wildlife habitat in 2019, and whereas Mr. Nuncamp served on the website committee in 2020 that led to the creation of marvinnc.gov, a modern website aimed at providing residents greater transparency in their local government, and whereas Mr. Nuncamp served on the Wayfinding and Branding Committee in 2022 and 2023, which led to the adoption of new logos and a new seal, the Enriched by Nature tagline, and a master plan for future wayfinding signage. And whereas Mr. Nuncamp established the Friendship Tree in 2022, a partnership of the Village of Marvin and Marsh that has since provided more than 100 needy children in Union County with gifts on Christmas morning. And whereas Mr. Nuncamp has demonstrated continually that he is a person of immense character, dedicating his time to serving his community as well as supporting the village staff and the concept of public service. And whereas Mr. Nuncamp resigned his position on the Parks, Recreation, and Greenways Board on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Marvin that appreciation be shown to Bob Nuncamp in honor of his continued service and dedication to the residents of the Village of Marvin. While the council and staff are saddened to lose Mr. Nuncamp, the council and staff wish him the best in his future endeavors. The council and staff encourage residents to thank Mr. Nuncamp for his service to the Marvin community. Congratulations. This resolution that I just presented. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, we got to read that in a second.
I do have to read.
Okay. Do you need to sign this real fast? Now, if you can go ahead and read that.
All right. I'll read this for the, I'll use your microphone.
That'll be fine.
All right. This comes from the Village of Marvin. The Village of Marvin Council and staff would like to recognize and thank Bob Nuncamp for his years of service to the Marvin community, 2018 to 2024. Bob is the ideal resident that any municipal government desires to have. His intelligence, creativity, kindness, volunteerism, and respect for public service are invaluable. Bob has also gone above and beyond to serve the residents of Marvin with a core focus on the preservation of wildlife and natural space. His dedicated efforts are one of the reasons why Marvin is the most beautiful place in Union County. We hope his legacy and thoughtful visioning can be carried forward. From the Marvin Village Council and staff, thank you, Bob, for your service to the Marvin community and for being a friend. Thank you.
You can't do it without other people. And I started March in 2019. And Christina has taken over and done a phenomenal job with that. I look at the town council today, and I look at the town council 5 or 6 years ago. And I think we're blessed with a great town council. Christina Amos has brought so much to this community. And thank you again. Bob?
Enjoy that extra time, but something tells me that you're going to be getting involved in other things soon, so thank you, Bob. Next up, we have reports and updates. First up, we have the manager's report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. In your agenda packets, you all had asked me to contact NCDOT about the Bonds Grove Waxhaw Marvin roundabout preliminary for the pedestrian cuts. If you look in your agenda packet, there's a schematic of the preliminary design, and you'll see the existing cut that is already there. And if this is sufficient for you all, then there's no further action that we need to ask for from DOT. There's one cut that's on Waxhaw Marvin that's going across. You can see it pretty well delineated in the design map, because that's the yellow highlight is where they're going to put in sidewalk. So if y'all have no further direction or interest in additional pedestrian cuts, I think this is sufficient. We are going to do the conduit. There's a sewer line, a water line that actually runs kind of almost parallel to the Waxhaw Marvin Road. So I told them to kind of T-bone perpendicular that conduit. So unless y'all have any further action from there, this is already in the plans. Okay, no further comments or?
I think it's fine.
Okay. And then the next thing is probably most important. As you all know, Officer Kazai with Union County Sheriff's Department got promoted, so we will be getting a new officer to cover Marvin, who is Officer West, sitting in the back, and just wanted to take a couple seconds to introduce him. He will be starting September-ish, September 7th. He was born and raised in Long Island, New York. He relocated to Union County in 2018, where he began his career with Union County Sheriff's Department in 2021. He served in the Detention Bureau, Court Security Bureau, and most recently was assigned to Charlie Squad Patrol. Mr. West has been in the Zone 4, which is the Waxhaw, Marvin, Weddington, Wesley Chapel area since that time. So we welcome you, and we're glad to have you aboard. That's all I have, sir.
Joe, if I could really fast, one thing I would like to share with you all. You did task us with creating a anniversary logo to celebrate Marvin's 30th anniversary, and we do have that completed if you would like to see that. Like our other logos, we have a spring and fall version. Sorry, wait for my computer to cooperate here. Okay. That is a vacation photo. So here you have our spring logo. So 30 years is the pearl anniversary. So we are going with the idea of an engraved pearl and a banner below it that says 30 years of prosperity. You have the same thing, but in a different color palette for the fall. We're still tweaking this a little bit, but this is the design that we've gone with thus far, and we'd just like to know if you like it.
Working on that? Who's working on the design? I think it looks good.
This very talented lady here.
Nice job. Very nice. Any comments from council before we move on? Next up, we have planners report. Thank you, Austin.
Good evening, council. The only thing that I have for an update is regarding the Marvin Loop project. We still moving forward, getting plans done, and staff as well as representatives from Dewberry will be meeting with the individual property owners next week to kind of go over the project with them as well as solicit their feedback. And then later on, probably within the next month or two, we'll have a full open public meeting for the public to come and learn about the project. But other than that, that's the only thing I have on my update, unless you guys have any questions on anything.
Council? Kim, you're good?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hunter. Next up, we have Rose report. Who's got that?
I don't have anything.
Nothing? Okay, thank you. Deputies report. Do we
Since
table that?
Officer Kazai is not here, you can skip this for now and just come back to it when he gets here.
Okay. We don't have to suspend the rules or anything?
You don't do
Okay.
that anymore.
All right, we'll move on to next up, planning board report.
Yeah, the planning board met on July 16th. We had two main items of discussion. We basically approved the entryway signage for the Heritage at Marvin, contingent upon the village engineer and outside approval. Also, we talked about the discussion of the rezoning and of Marvin Grove, which is in the Heritage District, and that project there where there's more acquisition of land and such, so we discussed that. Was it?
Okay, any questions for Bob? Moving on, PR&G board report. John?
We didn't have a whole lot to go on with PRG. I do want to mention a couple of things that in terms of talking to Tyler, we had a very successful interaction with Union County and a summer camp they offered to up to 24 Marvin residents or non-residents, but people living in Marvin, to do kind of a day camp over at Cane Creek Park where they did archery and something else. Paddle boarding, so they filled out the slots that we had, and looking forward to it. We also discussed, sorry about that. I lost my thing here. But we also discussed nature, wildlife. Christina Culp gave us some really good information there. She continues to research a number of things. And there's a couple other initiatives. We're right now in the midst of looking for more volunteers. We heard that Bob is leaving the PRG board, but also Jennifer Barbara is pursuing some other interests, including Marsh, which she continues to serve on. So we're actually looking for 2 new folks for the PRG board. So if people do have an interest and would like to put their name in, you can go online and there's an application that you can submit, and Austin will reach out and we'll have consideration for new PRG board members over the next couple of meetings.
Thanks, John. All right. Next up, we have event planning report. Tyler, what you got?
All right, so a good bit coming up. Like Mr. Parrish had said, we're doing our Marvin Day Camp Thursday. We had 24 slots that we could open up to, and we filled out. And from what I can tell, it's pretty much all Marvin residents, which is great. We offered it to kids, 3rd grade and up. So that was a really good turnout. Really excited to see how that goes on Thursday. It's really nice of Union County Parks and Rec to partner up with us on that. National Night Out was rescheduled. It'll now be next Tuesday, the 20th, still from 5:30 to 8:30. Same deal. Inflatables, law enforcement. We'll have several different units out there: fire trucks, EMS, SWAT, SAFE unit. So that'll be a lot of fun for the families to come on out. We got free food. We'll have hot dogs, chips, drinks, stuff like that. So that'll be a pretty cool evening. After that, September 21st, we are holding a cornhole tournament at Marvin Eford Park. We already have our registration link up on the website, so you can go out there and check it out. So that'll be pretty cool, just seeing how things go these days. And then after that, October 25th, I believe I sent you guys calendar invites. Maybe I only sent it to staff. Maybe I didn't send it to y'all. But October 25th, trick or treat. Seems a little bit far ahead in the future, but time is flying, so that's right around the corner. Yeah, that's it. Just rolling for events.
Any questions? I have one.
Yes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, I just had a comment. 2 days ago, I drove out to King Creek, never saw the place, looking at the facility. Absolutely, I don't know why I've been here for all these years. I've never gone there, and it's going to be quite a fabulous event. So thank you for putting that all together. It's a beautiful lake, beautiful park. It's got fishing, boating, paddle boats.
It's going to be awesome.
I just have one quick question. Just, do you have a rough idea how many hits we get? Like a month or a day, or how does that work with all that we're putting out there? I'm just wondering how that message, is that the right message to be putting out and continue that, or is there other things that you think that would be more effective when it comes to events?
Like the way it's being advertised?
Yes.
Like,
Can you track how many hits we get? Like who's logging on to our websites? And
I'm not entirely sure about that.
Okay.
All I really see is like the likes on the Instagram and stuff like that. I know like everything goes out to, we have a long email list that we send out to every time we have an event, and it goes to the newsletter. So pretty much everyone that's signed up, and I think there's a ton of people on the email list, and the newsletter list is long, so they all get them directly, and then our traffic on Instagram is pretty good. And then we'll go for some of the other stuff like Trick or Treat and National Night Out, some of the bigger events. I'll post them on outside sources like Eventbrite and Google Events and stuff. So that's some of the events like Trick or Treat last year, like kind of got blown up when it went out on several outside things. So.
okay. I just was curious about if we keep track that way or not, just to see the best way to get our message out. So thank you. If there's no other questions. Thank you. Coffee with council. Correct me, I'm wrong. It was you and I? Yep. The last visit. We actually had some visitors. It's a public meeting, so we can announce who they were, right? There's nothing against that. The Nichols couple.
The Nichols
that
came.
live right across from the Jones homes that's being built, and they had some legitimate concerns with notification on how ahead of time because they're going to start doing some blasting. I guess they ran into some problems.
I'll update you on that. So I did reach out to Rob over at Jones Homes, because they'd asked about the blasting. The blasting actually occurred either the day that they were here or the day after they were here. So by the time I reached out to him after the weekend, it was already done. He said they only needed 10% to use 10% of the explosives that they normally would have done. So, and he said at this time, they don't see any other need for any type of blasting. They also asked about the emergency exit that they have cut out. And I asked about that to make sure that, does that still remain an emergency exit? And they said, yes, it will only be for emergency. And I said, well, I know that's what you presented to us, but that was their concern. And from that, he assured me that was still the same. So, and I did respond back to Mr. Nichols as well, letting him know that I did talk to Rob, and he addressed those issues. So, but it's good. Good to have.
And I know they were concerned about how many trees in the emergency exit that were taken out, and if those were going to be, I bet you've already met with them on that issue, but we, again, welcome that kind of conversation, and that's what these things are for, so we can dig a little deeper if we need to, so thanks for doing that.
Yep.
But that's all we had. WUMA report?
We were off for July,
Yep.
so.
So we haven't had a meeting yet, so it'll be this month.
It'll be this month.
Okay.
And I believe we're in Mineral Springs.
Okay, that is an open public meeting as well that you can attend for the public. All right, next up, we have consent agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Amended, my apologies.
So moved.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Okay. All right. Next up, we have unfinished business. We're going to go right into the Marvin Loop Trail stormwater study update.
Good evening. In my last update, we had received the report back from our AMT Engineering with recommendations on how to curb or stop the flooding that we were having on the trail right here along Marvin School Road, Joe Kerr Road. And so since then, our engineer had reached out to the Department of Transportation. North Carolina DOT responded back after reading the recommendations, and they are prepared to address all of those in that report. This should take place pretty soon, over the next week or two. It should happen by the end of the month.
And I'll just add to that there's one portion of their recommendation that we're going to wait to see if DOT Solutions actually fix the issues. And if they don't, we will come back to you around December and potentially with another minor fix. I think it was maybe $10,000 or less for some piping.
It would probably be less than that. It's some mounding. You can add some mounding along our portion of the property. But outside of that, they believe by addressing the issues with the ditch and the culverts, they should pretty much alleviate the flooding that we've experienced in the past.
So we just want to make sure before we actually do that work. So we'll reassess this in December, and we'll bring back to you all an update to let you know it's either working or we need to do one more thing, which is the second recommendation. So.
No, sir. Thank you.
Discuss and consider fee and lieu portion of Heritage at Marvin Greenway.
So this was presented to you guys at your work session regarding Jones Homes requesting to submit a fee in lieu for the crush and run, the crushed concrete portion of their trail. that would run basically adjacent to Meadowlark. Their original proposal was based off their engineer estimate. I think it was like 15,000. Our engineer estimated based for the grading and stuff to complete the project for 28,000. Jones Homes has agreed to pay that amount. So the request is if council wants to accept that fee in lieu, instead of having that portion of the trail completed, then basically that's the amount, and there's a resolution in your guys' packets for that acceptance.
Joe, I can't hear you.
Sorry, Kim, my mic wasn't on. What we talked about last time was just, doing the fee in lieu, so they basically met that, what we were talking about. I think, Andy, you had a concern of inflation and all that stuff, so we get this fee in lieu. My question would be is how soon, with all the construction going on, can that affect us where we're out of pocket?
So the fee in lieu would go into our Greenway capital. It does not have to necessarily, that 28,000 would not have to be used specifically for that trail. Basically, we have the easement for that portion, and it's up to council on when or if that trail that portion is to be constructed. It's the same as when we did Belgrove a few years ago. We retained the easement, we took the fee in lieu for the construction costs of that trail and put it in Greenway capital. So basically, the only tie to those funds would be that it just had to be used for any type of Greenway construction, not necessarily specifically to that Greenway.
But to your point, if we were to construct it ourselves with our contractor, then this should be sufficient to do that.
Correct, because our engineer.
Today's dollars.
Yes, because our engineer also factored in, like I said, any type of extensive grading as well as the material and all that. Like in their estimate, they basically just did true material cost, the cost of the trail, and based off the linear footage and all that. And so our engineer recommended for any grading or any other site work. Once again, this would be a low impact trail once constructed, so it wouldn't necessarily be any major vegetation removed. Basically, like I said, the reason that Jones is requesting this, they just had, a few, one, just how the site's laid out, and two, some of the connectivity. It would just wrap back into the cul-de-sac at the bottom of the development. And it wasn't, as some of the residents in Meadowlark also just requested that it not be built at this time. So it's not being connected to anything specifically outside. It basically, the trail is connecting the park portion that's donated as part of, or that is dedicated as part of their approval and tying back into the interior of their development. It has no other connectivity to any adjoining properties.
So the folks of Meadowlark understand this and have signed off on this or approved this?
In what regards?
You just made the comment that it was presented to the folks at Meadowlark, or?
The folks at Meadowlark made the request to Jones Homes not to construct that portion. And so that's why Jones is making the request to the village to do a fee in lieu instead of constructing that portion of the trail.
So if you recall, a few years ago, Belgrove did the same thing. That money in the fee in lieu was reallocated to a different trail project. So you could do something similar to this with this funding, or you can just sit on it until you guys want to do this trail or another trail.
Doesn't change easements or anything like that?
No, the easement's still platted. It's still a 30-foot easement that runs basically adjacent to Meadowlark. So we do have that easement, and once again, it would just be if the council, if and when, decide to construct that portion. Like I said, at this time, there's no benefit until we move forward potentially with doing something on that 2.5 acres that the village is dedicated for the park, for a park, if any.
So it still leaves us the option of that area where the 2.5 acres is, just connecting even just that portion of it, so we could use a portion of that money, the fee in lieu, to complete that project. But then if we're not wanting to do the other parts of the project, we can reallocate that to other.
Correct. So just to clarify, they're still constructing the asphalt portion that runs adjacent to Newtown. So basically from their emergency entrance to the pocket park, I don't have it in front of me, but I think in your guys' packets, the plans are in there. That portion's still being constructed. So the only portion that's not is basically where you see it kind of tees at the pocket park. It's basically from that tee, from the asphalt pave to the bottom cul-de-sac, which is that Potts? Might be Potts Court or Drive. is the road. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah.
Just trying to Find it here. I'm just trying to figure out, is this a bridge to nowhere? I mean,
The path.
yeah.
So just a little background, the original proposal during the rezoning did have a path that did basically tie into Meadowlark. During the rezoning phase, the residents of Meadowlark didn't want that, understood, so basically the developer took out any type of connectivity to Meadowlark Lane and wrapped it around into the cul-de-sac. So in short, it's just an interior loop or exterior loop per se. So it doesn't really connect to anything but the development itself, which already has that connectivity at the top anyway.
And this will be constructed at what point in time in the construction phase?
With the,
They're grading on there now, right? You see this.
correct, so this is in the buffer, so there's no grading that's been done in that buffer.
It's all in the buffer, so we could do it, they could do it now.
Jones,
Yes. I mean, we could if we wanted to.
if we wanted to, yes.
So the stuff that's highlighted, just to be clear, in this last depiction of the highlighted yellow, that's the area that is in fee and lieu.
Correct.
Okay.
Austin, can you pull that map up and put it up on the screen? Because I have questions as well.
So Hunter, while he's pulling that up,
So here's Newtown, here's the entrance to the development. This portion right here is all asphalt that is going to be constructed as part of the development. This portion in yellow that runs adjacent to Meadowlark and ties back into the development is the portion that the fee in lieu is for. And that portion was not going to be paved asphalt, it was going to be the crushed concrete, crushed run surface.
Hunter, where are the easements for this? Can you point those out?
The easements for the trail,
Yes.
right there. So this is actually the final plat. So here is Meadowlark right here.
Right.
So that easement meanders through here. And there's language in the plat too that the approximate location of that easement is basically to be based off final design. So it would be what we construct for the most part. It's kind of a blanket easement within that buffer.
If this, let's just say it's not approved, can those funds be allocated somewhere else, maybe in the pocket park?
So the funds have to be tied specifically to Greenway trail construction. They can be allocated to another Greenway project, but not necessarily for any type of and I'm not 100% sure how the capital fund reads on that, but I think it would specific to Greenway trail construction, not necessarily like.
I got you, but I didn't know if part of the pocket park could be part of that as well. You're coming through it anyway, so.
So the pocket park
Right
portion
there,
is
right.
like, yeah. And so you're still gonna have the connectivity right here.
Okay.
Going to ask that between those two properties, 59 and 60?
Yes.
And that'll just be a simple walkway? Okay.
Hunter, that was my question. So is there going to be, between 59 and 60, between the houses, is there going to be a walkway? And then I guess south of that, with that little what I would say would be a walkway area up to the roundabout, is that a walkway there, or is that, what is that?
I'll have to double check the construction plans, but I'm pretty sure it's the walkway. That was, if you recall, when they were proposing the pump station, that was gonna be, based off of how they're designed, that was the force main easement.
Right.
And so now, So,
Is that a sewer easement?
no, because there's no force main. Since it's
Okay.
all gravity.
So is that going to be a concrete path?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
It's- Okay. Any other questions?
Just so to clarify, the easement's there and will remain ours. It's just our decision of if we want to take that money, that 28,000, move forward and do something with it now, or kind of wait until things develop and we could do something later, understanding cost of living increases and stuff like that. But we could use those monies on
Correct.
other Greenway projects.
So you guys can either not accept the fee in lieu and have them construct that portion, or take the fee in lieu, hold that money for this portion in the future, or, and by the future could be next year, could be many years. But it's also the fund, that fee in lieu is just tied specifically to Greenway, so it could be then allocated to another project. This is how certain projects, like to do connectivity and certain things are done, where, for example, if they were doing sidewalk across the front, but there was no sidewalk connectivity, you do a fee in lieu, where then you build the sidewalk connectivity to that in the long run. And that's similar how this portion is, because the asphalt paved will then cross the roundabout, and you'll have, in theory, the connection to the Marvin Loop, which is your greater connectivity of everything else. This portion is basically just for recreational purposes for, residents and/or, it doesn't, like I said, provide any connectivity to any other community or amenity or anything else.
So I'm going to pose a question to what you just said. I remember Councilwoman Vandenberg last meeting said, why would we want to do this? In other words, if we have standards, why would we want to be involved with this at all and take up our resources and everything else? What would be in it for us?
In regards to accepting the fee in lieu? Like I said, it's a portion of trail that's not necessarily needed for any type of connectivity at this time, so that the option is that they can construct it as part of the original approved plans, or we can use those funds to allocate towards another project for, connectivity. It could be allocated towards the Marvin Loop, however you guys want to do it.
It's the flexibility.
Yeah.
Hunter, why do they not want to build it?
From my understanding, residents of Meadowlark have contacted them to not construct it. That's all that has been conveyed to me.
So then when we decide to construct it, we're gonna hear the same request.
Most likely.
Yeah.
I think where I can get my head around this is because we have an access point already, that's going to access what will hopefully continue to go into the pocket park and maybe beyond. So you have access for all those residents on that side. So and if we can use those funds for somewhere else, then it's just the opinion of one, doesn't necessarily have to be created if we have access that way, assuming that, and if you can confirm that that's what that is. But I'll leave it to other council members to chime in.
Well, first of all, their trail materials are not what we call for our trail. They're saying crush and run. We use crushed concrete, two different materials, different purposes. And if we were gonna do it if we were gonna build this trail, I would be for doing it with fee and lieu and doing it with our own contractor, so we would have continuity with our trail system, because they're not doing it the way we want it done. Two, if there's really, this is just a recreational trail. If we're getting pushback for just a recreational trail, it doesn't serve any connectivity purposes, then maybe we don't do it at this point in time, and we use the money for more important, more connected trails. That's the point of the trails, is connectivity.
If this served a greater purpose,
Yeah.
I would like, even if it served a greater purpose, I'd like to learn more about all of this as opposed to what information we have right now. So my piece on this would be, this just gets tabled, that fee and lieu money is just tabled as well, and to a future date. And it gives us time to learn more about what's going on here And again, if it's a bridge, I'm not too all excited about a bridge to nowhere.
One question I have is, when you're talking about the concern among some Meadowlark residents with where they were talking about connecting to Meadowlark, is that a Meadowlark private home, that area, or private property, or is it some sort of Meadowlark common area?
And so, like I said, the original approved plan had that path kind of connect to their road. It doesn't have any direct connection, but I think the concern is still having the walkability along their private road. That's my understanding. I don't, like I said, I can, if we want to say.
So there's no Meadowlark property itself that the easement or
No.
anything would be on?
This easement's completely within the common open space of the Heritage subdivision. So.
It's not like we need to gain an easement from a private property that it connects to?
Correct.
Okay.
So what I can do, I mean, if you guys want that information, I can request a representative from Jones Holmes be here to kind of go into greater detail with you guys maybe during the work session. Just because, like I said, that it kind of caught me off guard too when they requested it. I said that I would, take it to council, and it's up to you guys if you want to accept it, and if not, they are bounded to construct that portion as part of their original approval. So it's up to you, but what it does, like I said, this fee in lieu does provide flexibility where we don't have to construct that portion now, and we can use those funds for higher priority type projects.
Well, why don't we table it to the work session so that we can get more information? That I think it would satisfy everybody on council to have a little bit more information on this. I'm not 100% comfortable with everything myself, so I'd like to learn a little bit more about it.
Sounds good.
With Andy's, concern of the material being used, did you guys happen to find the standards that we really feel like we have?
We did. They were actually they were an addendum to 2019-ish, and somehow they did not get incorporated in the new 2020 plan. So we can do a new addendum, but we still are doing some research on our own to bring back some recommendations to you all on that portion. But it did happen in 2019, and they did not get included in the 2020 plan.
The ordinance references the standards in the adopted master plan, which when that ordinance was done, the adopted master plan was a 2008 one that then was updated periodically. With that being said, what Christine and I have discussed is potentially, or not potentially, the best probably approach is to go ahead and just get it updated into our engineered technical standards, where then it's part of those, and it lives in that document, and then anything design development-wise references that. It's what our stormwater does. That's what any of the actual kind of civil design of developments references that manual anyway.
Okay, so we do have standards in there for what our trails should be, and it's the crushed concrete, correct, or no?
Not in the 2020 plan. It doesn't go into that much specific detail.
But in the 2019 plan it did?
It did, yes.
Okay, so we have it. It should have
Yes.
been brought forth. So
Yes.
Andy's concern of them not using the right materials is kind of null and void because we have it, and they just are gonna have to go by our standards if we decide to have them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we can, and we'll bring all that back to you at the work session to go over what was approved in 2019 and what that reflected in the 2020 plan. They did include it in the 2020 plan, it's just not in as much detail as was done in the 2019.
Okay, so
Sorry, Kim.
if we decide to move forward, then we have the correct materials that they would need to use. We just need to make that decision if we want to take the fee in lieu money or not. But we still need to get it updated.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just for clarification, the materials that we're using, is that supposed to be for the whole trail or just the connector part?
Well, hold on, say that again.
It's just the yellow part that's in your agenda.
The yellow part is the only portion that is
The rest of it's gonna be
rest of
paved,
it's paved.
Okay, and that's following the ordinance?
Correct.
Okay, just was curious
Yeah.
on how.
In short, our master plan basically differentiates DOT side path versus like the natural surface and all that, but it doesn't go into detail like the 2019, which it actually talks about the material width and sub-base and all that other stuff. So that's kind of the biggest difference. So in short, like the portion along Newtown's a DOT side pass, which will be constructed similar to the Marvin Loop. This one would be more of the trail natural surface that you see right here by Village Hall. is what the intent was.
Well, I'm going to take the, what council's asking and just, I'll need, I guess, a motion to table that. Is that correct?
Yes, let's do that to make it.
Make it
formal.
official.
Yeah,
Make
I
a
agree.
motion to, someone wants to take that?
I'd like to make a motion to table the discussion of the fee in lieu for the Heritage project.
Portion of the Heritage Greenway?
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's, we're going to move that to the next work session, correct?
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right. I noticed that Debbie, because I just walked in, so we skipped you because you weren't here. So we're going to have you come back up. Thank you, Hunter. And do the deputies report.
Okay.
How are you?
Hey, how are you guys?
Good, good.
So you guys have what I have in your packets, correct?
Yep.
Did anything stand out to anyone? There was one call that stood out to me. It was a larceny of a vehicle.
What?
A larceny of a vehicle. The only reason it stood out to me when I looked at the report and read it, it was an unlocked car and the keys were left in the car. Easily avoidable. If we lock our cars, we don't leave the keys in it. Just one of those general reminders that we always like to put out to lock your doors, lock your cars. Doesn't matter where you live, what community you live in. It's just one basic thing. It's a way to help us prevent crime is by helping prevent it yourself. There was another thing I wanted to hit on. I didn't see it on here. It was a property damage report that I took in Firethorn of a mailbox that got hit. Seems very minor, but I was able to use the flock cameras that Firethorn had installed to get a tag number on the vehicle that hit it. Thankfully, the homeowner had some security cameras, so I could get a time frame of when it was hit. Obviously, I didn't get a tag off of that, but I was able to match the vehicle description I got to what I had on the flock cameras. So if there are any other neighborhoods or communities that are interested in flock, if they want to reach out to either me or Deputy Swan, I don't know exactly how to put them in touch with flock, but I could put them in touch with some of the other neighborhoods that have flock, and they can maybe give them some information on how to do that. And I know this wasn't July, this was just the other day, but I just wanted to hit on the hurricane we had come through. The roads did really well up here. I didn't really see any flooding anywhere I was working that day. Not a whole lot of trees that came down up this way. I think there was one that came down on Waxhaw Marvin right by Sedgefield, but it never came across the road. It hit the power line, and the power companies were already out, and they got it taken care of. But other than that, the roads held up real well for the flood.
So back to your, did we get the guy that hit the mailbox?
I did.
Okay.
I was able to run his tag, and he was actually in our system. And I had a phone number attached to him and everything, and I called him, and
Was he fairly local?
he was not. I think he lived in like Mint Hill or something. He was doing work in the neighborhood, construction work, and had no idea he had hit the mailbox. And when I called him, and he was very apologetic, and he wanted to make it right, so I was able to put him in touch with the homeowner, and they got it worked out together, and the guy actually came and paid him and fixed his mailbox for him.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
However, I would still have just a little bit of a concern that if I hit a mailbox, I think I would know I hit a mailbox. Because those aren't tiny mailboxes and they're not light mailboxes.
And he didn't actually knock the pole
No,
down.
I saw it because
Yeah.
I live right down the street from it.
Okay.
And I actually thought there were two mailboxes that were hit.
There was another one that was hit, but
Yes.
this guy didn't hit the other one. He hit the one going up Seminole towards Firethorn Club Drive. He hit the one that was on the right-hand side of the road, not the other side.
And
Not the
also-
one that was sitting in the chair. I saw
chair.
it was sitting in the chair, not that one. I don't know what happened with that one. That guy never reported that one.
And you have a noise complaint on here. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know that one.
Okay.
It wasn't listed on here. I didn't have any noise complaints that I went to in July. I had a couple this month that I went on.
Can I quote the noise complaint?
I'm sorry?
Can I quote, can I talk about
Yes,
the noise complaint?
yes.
There was someone that thought they had a noise that was concerning to them, and the only real problem to it was 7:30 in the afternoon on a Friday or Saturday night, and he thought their noise was too loud. And of course, on the weekend, it goes to 11 o'clock. Okay? Or is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm just saying that we had a noise complaint, and I'm interested to hear if it was at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
7:30.
No, this was July. It
Oh,
said,
July.
yeah, at the bottom of this, it says we had one noise complaint, and it wasn't listed on here anywhere other than it's written, it's quoted at the bottom of it.
We had one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the one we had, it was last Saturday, because I was working that last Saturday. No, not this,
That's what I thought you was talking about.
yeah, no.
And just a real quick reminder, maybe some quick advice for residents, because I was stopped by a resident just yesterday. They run in our neighborhood all the time and saw a suspicious vehicle and kept running, and then saw it pulling out of another, said it had a Texas plate on it, looked like an older car. I said, for all you know, they could have been just looking at homes that were for sale, for all we know.
Right.
But what do you recommend in those situations? I said, did you get a plate number or call it in? She said, no, of course not, but.
It's the old adage that when I was a school resource officer, we push to the kids. If you see something, say something. You know, we don't know what to look for if we don't know that there's something to look at. So if you see anything suspicious, no matter if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, pick up the phone, call 911. Somebody will come out and get as much information as you can, but be as safe as you can. You know, we don't expect you to walk up to the car and try to get a tag. If you can get a tag number safely, that's always great. If you can't, get as much information as you can, what kind of car, color, maybe what direction it was heading, anything that can help us try to locate the vehicle or whatever is, you know, the person, the vehicle, anything.
And
I
just,
asked my neighbors, I asked my community if they have a problem, just take their phone and take a picture of it.
Mhm.
And then there's no question what color it is or what type it is.
Exactly, yeah. And all of us deputies have county-issued cell phones, and we can always, you know, you send me the picture, you know. That way, you know, I come to your house and I say, hey, can you send me that picture just so I can know what I'm looking for? Plus, if the next day, if I'm driving around and I'm like, car.
I have two items in here, I want you to tell me why they're this way.
Okay.
It has alarm, law, and then it has burglaries. Can you read those two numbers and tell me why they're such a...
Oh, alarm law, okay.
Yeah.
So when they're listed as alarm law, it's a burglar alarm, not a fire alarm.
Okay, but then how many burglaries did we have?
None.
Oh, so I mean, it was the residents that...
yeah,
said
after
that.
so many, don't they get?
Yeah, I'm without having to look at it, I think it's three within a certain
More than
period of time.
3 alarms that go off.
Yeah.
Usually there's a citation that can be written from Union County, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I
Maybe
like
for the
difference
town,
in
I'm not sure.
We had 21 accidental alarms go off,
Mm-hmm.
but we had 0 burglaries.
Correct. Yep. And the alarms could be, maybe they walked out, didn't get out of the house fast enough and it set the alarm off. Some of them is you get the power blinks off and the alarm will trip off. But that's, those were all just regular alarms, no burglaries to go with them.
I just noticed that the residents here in the last few months have had a real problem with, or concern about burglaries and things like this, and it's nice to see a 0.
Means we're doing a good job of getting out in the neighborhoods and being visible.
Thank you.
And then one final question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the storm that we had recently, just to be clear, you guys just are patrolling, you don't have nothing to do with barricades or anything like that, correct?
Well, me personally, no. The sheriff's office, the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, was open, which comprises of members of the fire department, the upper command staff of the sheriff's office, they go around and they will put barricades up, but me personally, no.
So, and I don't know if this can get down the chain or we can get staff to turn it, but I will say I had to leave and get out, which I pretty much knew, but I was stopped by an individual saying, you can't go that way because that's closed off. So my issue, maybe with staff, if we can somehow, going forward, that we can have signs up, say, road closed ahead, because when I was in Waxhaw coming back, I mean, I drove probably 3-4 miles, and then all of a sudden, it's a barricade. There was no notification.
Yeah.
Had to turn all the way around, go all the way back down to thing, and then come in on Newtown Road to access it. Yes, I know I shouldn't have been out, but I had to be out at that time, but.
Yeah.
So we actually just spoke about, we had a debrief this morning, Davey and I, and we are in the process of ordering some more barricades. He has not had a chance to speak to Jill, but they're gonna have that conversation, and we should be getting some more barricades. Now, the signs are relatively expensive. We're more than welcome to get some signs, but with the signs in the stands, they're probably,
Well, we really only have 2 barricaded areas in Marvin, correct? Or is there more? In Marvin.
I think the worst one is probably Joe Carr Road, right there near Saddle. That surprisingly didn't flood. I was
surprised too.
I was surprised.
But usually, Marvin Road heading towards Charlotte is another, that is an area that a lot of times will breach the bridge area, but that's the only 2.
yeah, Marvin School Road has in the past, but we also have internal, like if there are any internal residential neighborhoods flood out that need to be temporarily coned off, we would have that. We don't have the authority to close down any of the NCDOT roads, but in the state of emergency, Union County would have that authority to do so, and they would use the resources.
And that's why I'm asking, because if it's staff, that somehow, it'd be nice to have a sign that, you're not driving.
If we're aware that the road is closed, we could probably put something up to give more notice. However, we'd have to figure out how to make sure that our resources aren't taken when DOT comes up and takes those cones and stuff back up too.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'd have to figure that one out.
So the sheriff's office, maybe something you would want to get up with Chief Underwood with the sheriff's office. They've got barricades that are probably about that tall. They're like pyramids almost, and they have a stencil that says UCSO on them. They have those.
And typically in emergency situations like that, all those resources are allocated through their Emergency Operations Center. So you guys, the Sheriff's Department, would basically tell the Emergency Operations Center what resources they have, 15,000 cones, and they would start allocating those resources in other parts of the community that needed them. So we'll look into the cones, and we'll just report back to y'all from a standpoint of resource allocation, what we're able to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're now on to new business. First one up, we have discussion of windmill bond and final paving.
So just, this is regarding the closeout of Winmore. If you guys recall, we claimed that bond. We received those proceeds last in February 2023. It was for the amount of $114,000 roughly. The remaining improvements included the pond conversion to be converted from the wet to the dry pond per the approved plans, as well as final asphalt repairs and final paving, and the tree mitigation for the trees that died during the development or after they were installed. With that being said, we entered into agreement with the HOA, because at that time the HOA was exploring the route of removing the dedication for the public roads, because those roads are publicly dedicated to us and would be accepted by us in any other normal circumstances if this development was completed. However, the HOA looked to remove that dedication to keep them private, so they would be able to install a gate for their subdivision. So that agreement read basically any overages for the bond would be the sole responsibility of the HOA to pay for. To date, we have completed the pond conversion. It costed $70,000 when, so there was a minor overage on that, because originally quoted, I think, was 62 or 64. As well as the paving cost that was originally quoted has went up slightly just for asphalt patching and repairs to bring it up to standard. Those overages, those prospective overages right now are at roughly $5,300 or $336.25. In short, the HOA is now considering keeping the roads publicly dedicated and for the village to accept. And staff's basically just requesting, or kind of looking for some guidance here and potentially requesting that council either pay just kind of, and Chaplain, you may need to speak in, like regarding the agreement, potentially have what's the word, I guess, not revoke, but just.
It would be basically waive that enforcement provision of the agreement. The agreement stated one would put the improvements in order from what the village perceived public health and safety. We did the pond first for flooding, and then we did the road improvements, and then there are some trees that we think we can still get donated and put in some vegetation. But it did have, the village is not responsible. The village got the bond from the developer. The developer left, didn't complete. And with a lot of things, the completion of the development costs more than the bond proceeds. And I think a lot of that had to do with timing, because everything went up in cost so much. But the village did good to get the proceeds, got the $114,000, $115,000, got it done. It's just coming to a point where it's going to cost more than the proceeds, and the neighborhood, legally, the way that the contract is written, the town does not have to come out of pocket. They're making, I guess, a compassionate police, and we're taxpayers. There's going to be public streets. We've got a developer that didn't get everything done. We're asking y'all to help us out like you would with other public streets. They just haven't been dedicated yet, but they've been dedicated but not accepted. They've been dedicated on the plat, but until this board formally accepts, they're not town streets. So they're dedicated for public use, not accepted.
Are you aware of any precedent that's been set before on a situation like this?
Kind of. There was an instance in my previous job in the town of Valdez. This was a development that fell through right at the time of the recession. A similar kind of concept where pricing went up. Now, this was for a whole lot major overages and improvements, and basically the town of Valdez.
I'm going to interrupt you. I think Joe means a precedent set for the village.
Oh, not for the village. No. This is, to my knowledge, this is the first bond that we have claimed. There might be one other, but I can't recall off the top of my head which subdivision it was for. And it was.
Hunter, the $7,500, what is that for?
So basically, staff is asking for, basically, in short, that we go ahead and accept the roads, finish the improvements, and just pay for the overages. That's kind of option number one. Because
$7,500?
So the $7,500 is just for any type of other contingencies. The quoted amount that met with Red Clay, those projected overages are roughly at that $5,000, $3,300. And that was just as of last month. And regarding the contract we have with Winmore, the reason we also did this is because we're using our pre-existing contracts we used ours for Union Environmental for the pond conversion, as well as our paving contract with Red Clay. So
is this estimated 5336.25? Is that including fixing where they went ahead and started putting in the poles for?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, no, let me rephrase that. No, it doesn't, because all those are basically, in short, if we take over the roads, all that would be done is those would be cut off and paid right over. So there's no actually patching that's going into those.
Okay, so that's not an additional cost?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's option one. Option two, the HOA. So staff requests that the HOA pay that deposit, and then this is where the conversation that the HOA is now, like I said, considering not privatizing and gating the roads. Option two for the HOA standpoint is that if they would pay the portion or pay their deposit for the overage, but then, like I said, because they have not apparently fully made a decision if they're still trying to go private or public. One, if we take the roads over, that kind of null and voids their whole point. Like, they wouldn't be able to, they would have to come and do right-of-way abandonment, but at the same time, council, in my opinion, I don't think you guys are going to vote yes on that, especially if we just spent public dollars right on that road. Option 2 would be for them to pay that deposit. If they decide to continue moving forward with privatizing the roads, they don't get it back. If they decide to forgo that and keep them public and dedicate them, and ask and request that the village take them over, then we reimburse them. So it's still out of pocket, like we would still be paying that overage. Or option 3 is just to hold true to the contract and make them pay it.
So when do they have to make a decision if they want to keep it, if they want to have it public or private?
That decision, I think, is somewhat based on council's kind of temperature on what they want to move forward with. Overall, all this is doing is delaying us trying to get this paved. And that's why, like I said, option 1 and 2 is relatively, in my opinion, the same, because the funds are being spent by the village. And ultimately, once again, they still have to come to the council regardless. Like, even if we still force them to pay it, they still have to come to council for the right-of-way abandonment to remove the public dedication. So in short, you can still make them pay it and still in the village take over the roads. That's not what staff's recommending, but they still have to come to the village for approval to privatize the roads in general.
So why is staff recommending that we pay the overage if we can force them to pay it and still get the dedication?
Because in short, and then Chaplain, correct me here, is that we can't necessarily force them to pay it, and all it does is delay, and that project just never gets done. And then that's where we kind of, they have in my opinion, in staff's opinion, is they bought into the neighborhood. That bond was there to protect them just as much as it was for the village. And so it's just we're at this difference between the overage.
So realistically, we're looking a little over $5,000.
Correct.
That we would have to pay to get these roads done, get it paved, get it finished, get it closed out, so this is a done deal.
But
Correct.
that doesn't necessarily mean that they will turn it over, correct?
If they're going to make it private, and I don't think that we need to be doing that.
Right.
But is there not like a time frame that they have to have this stuff done by?
No, we have an agreement. Well, I mean, when we signed for the certified bond release, I don't know if there was any time with the bond company, but in short, we would potentially send the remaining proceeds back to the bond company. Is that correct? I mean,
Yeah, if there are any unused, we should. And then, I always thought of I don't want to overcomplicate matters, because I think it also gets complicated if you modify this, hold money in trust, because then you've got to account for it. You've got to modify the agreement again. Another thing is see if we could reduce the scope and not bring the roads up to standards, just do enough repairs to basically $336 less of repairs. But then this neighborhood couldn't bring the roads to you for dedication because they wouldn't meet your specifications. And then they may get worse, and then they may come back later and seek.
So is there anything that we can do legally to guarantee that the roads would be dedicated to the village if we pay this?
that's my question, is that since they were publicly dedicated, do they have to be formally?
I think we can actually accept by that statute. The statute
I think so, too.
indicates, I believe we can. We always get the developer to submit to make it cleaner. The statute says the mere dedication is not an acceptance, because if that was the case, a lot of developers, and nothing against them, but they would build bad roads cheaper and then say, they're yours. It was dedicated on the plat. So the general statute indicates that there has to be an affirmative act of the governmental entity, and that is through a resolution of acceptance. Our policy has been for them to submit and request that, but I believe we can do that without. I don't have the statute in front of me.
Well, because I think the consensus of council is we're concerned about spending $5,000 of public money without knowing for sure that the roads are going to be turned over to the village, because then we would be putting it into a private road if they decided to privatize this road. And we don't want to do that. So
It would still be publicly dedicated, and y'all would have to approve the privatization and allowing the gate, so you still have a lot of power and control over that. But we could look into getting them to do just a short letter agreement that they agree to dedicate this upon.
I would feel a lot more comfortable with that. I think everybody else would too, if we have something in writing that guarantees that they're gonna come to us for us to accept the roads if we spend this
Well,
money
and that's
to bring
kind of
them
what
standard.
option 2 is, and and to my understanding, it's, and I don't know, like I said, the legality of it, but I don't know if, to your point, if we would hold that payment in trust, or we would deposit it, pay the overage, and then reimburse them if the HOA comes and does a public, or, a letter of acceptance. But in short, to Chaplain's point, like, even though the HOA like cannot still gate and take over, like, the roads would remain to an extent their maintenance responsibility, but they're still publicly dedicated roads. They wouldn't be able to put up a gate because you can't, it's a public right-of-way. So for them to do that, they have to come to council and go through the right-of-way abandonment to do the dedication, or to then have it as a private right-of-way. And that requires public hearing and council's approval, and you guys don't have to vote yes on that. As of right now, and I will mention, our policy that was adopted requires full 100% of the property owners. It's my understanding that there's one, if not up to 3, that aren't fully on board with taking over the HOA taking over the roads, and I think that's where they're getting to this impasse.
Yeah, and I think their big concerns about construction traffic being on their roads for the construction of Broadmoor has since also waned considerably, because there's no construction traffic over there in their development. So I think a lot of the reasons why they were concerned about it and wanting to privatize it are just not a reality anymore. For myself, I would tend to lean towards getting it done. But I would like to see if it's possible that we could get some kind of something in writing from them that they are going to turn it over. If we go ahead and finish this up, get it done in a timely fashion, that they would come to us for acceptance.
And that does, it simplifies the process, because we don't want to contact the bond company and do an accounting and then send a few thousand. We'd rather keep it in the community. If you want to, I think you could do a motion to approve, subject to confirmation that the village can unilaterally accept and/or and we might want both, confirmation that the HOA will bring these for dedication. But it could be, I think we have the authority. I just haven't looked at that statute, because usually developers always want to give the roads to the village.
Can we then table this
Yeah.
so you have that information so that we know for sure?
We're running up against the time clock of
I
the
mean,
contractor.
Can it wait until the work session so that we can get that information?
Ideally, if you got, and that's, I think, what Chaplain's trying to say, if we can confirm at the staff level, ideally, I would like to get red clay scheduled and get this paved, because waiting till the work session, but
I asked if there was some sort of time clock that we're running into. I was told, no, there's nothing we have. So what's the time clock now?
So the time clock is one, the cost going up for, additional patching or any other stuff from the roads. The two, or the second part of that is, which we should in theory have this done by November, but the time of year you can pave based off of temperature. So that's kind of the only time clock we're up against.
I'm only talking 2 weeks here till the next work session, the next meeting that goes.
What is the difference of a private road within the village coming to us and saying, hey, we don't have enough money to pave our road, so why don't you guys spend $7,500 and get our road up to snuff, and then we'll give it to you?
You raise a good point there, but I do think the difference here is we have almost $115,000 of bond proceeds, and we would rather utilize that all, because the road expenditures are, I believe, about $49,000.
Correct.
So we want to get everything done and use all the bond proceeds.
Chaplain, if we decide not to do this, do we have to send the $115,000 back to the bond?
We'd have to send the amount back we haven't used.
I believe so. I haven't looked at that agreement, but I do believe they say this is based upon estimates. You're to use this for a public purpose.
So the HOA isn't willing to spend the 5336.25 to get this taken care of?
It's not, in short, like I said, they don't want to pay the overage and then potentially not have enough of their property owners to get the right-of-way abandonment to make it fully private and gate it. So that's why option,
Shouldn't they want to pay the 5336.25 and dedicate it to the village, and then they wouldn't have to worry about maintaining it?
so that's like what I'm sorry, say that again?
I don't know why they're not willing to pay the 5336.25, that is what they think the overage is going to be, and then dedicate it to the village so that the village maintains it.
Because those roads were publicly dedicated in the first place, and in my understanding, like, once again, the only reason that we have this agreement is because they were wanting to privatize. If we were to claim the bond and do that, like, we could have given it to them, I mean, whatever, but there is somewhat of like public, responsibility here, since that was something that we held the bond, the developer fell through, we claimed the bond, and now we're trying to get those improvements done. So.
But what's you said there's public responsibility. I'm very confused on that.
I guess, that's my opinion, but it's just that, once again, that we approved a subdivision, got a bond put in place for the development to be completed. The developer failed to do the improvements. We claimed the bond, and I feel like based off the agreement the bond agreement that we had with the company, we have some sense of liability to complete those improvements. That's why if we don't complete it, that's why chaplains recommend that we send the rest of the proceeds back.
So if Broadmoor doesn't finish their infrastructure, then we're on the hook for it? The bond amount doesn't cover
That's
it
what
all?
the performance guarantee is in place for. The developer's guaranteeing that those installments are going to be installed, and if they're not, it's a line of credit, it's a fund where then there's measures in place to get them installed.
So, Kim, what I think has
But
happened.
it's on the back of the village.
Well, I think what has happened, Kim, what he alluded to earlier is timing. With the recent exponential increases in paving costs and all that, the bond would have normally covered it, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because everything went up so much in the last couple of years, this is what's happened. And unfortunately, it happened, and somebody's going to have to cover the small overage to get it done, or the streets won't get paved, period.
And our contract says that they're responsible for it.
Our contract with the HOA, yes.
So what if we were to spend the money, the $5,300, but making it contingent upon receiving a letter that they will be publicly dedicated? And if they were not to be publicly dedicated and privatized, that the HOA would reimburse us for that money?
It's a roundabout way, but that's the other way to do it.
Yeah, I always like having money in hand rather than trying to do that. We could do that, or the alternative is to let me review that statute on the dedication of infrastructure. Because I believe once it's publicly dedicated, the village can unilaterally accept. I haven't looked at that statute in probably several years, and I don't want to give that opinion off the cuff.
But we would go through without putting a gate. I heard something about a gate.
Correct.
The gate does not work with public streets by its very nature.
So why don't we table this discussion till the work session, where Chaplain can review that statute, make sure we got all our ducks in a row, and then we can decide this with a lot better information.
And I can do that, and
Okay, because that's only 2 weeks. It's not a.
No, and like I said, that's fine, like I
amount of
said,
time.
and I'll coordinate with the HOA. I have been dealing with, one, the Winmore bond for over 3 years now, but two, the whole paving thing with the HOA for the last month and a half.
Quick
So-
question, just for clarification purposes. Do you know, and going back to your timing issue / question to kind of figure out how we got here, is there not, if I thought for some reason the bonds were set at a 30% increase of what the anticipated costs were at the time of the bond? And so that's question number one. Question number two is, when was the bond, when did the development start? Was there
So yes, there's a 25% contingency on all our bonds. This neighborhood, the bond was originally from 2013 or 2015.
So that kind of
So
goes
that's-
along with the same issues that we've seen at Belgrove, where there's this long period of time where a development starts, which is when the bond was originated. So these bond numbers are based off of 2013, 2014, whatever the time period was, numbers inflated by 25%, but it still hasn't caught up with inflation.
The bond statutes have also changed on that end. Now it's more, like I said, performance, meaning that if the work is done and it's done to the approved plans for, i.e. to the municipality standard, then basically then when you release the bond, like you can't hold the bond for that. So, you know, like I said, a lot of things have changed. This is something that I came into when I took over the job, and the bond being as old as it was, it just never got updated, and/or it just, like I said, went through different development hands, because Century is the one that built the homes, and I think they were technically just a home builder, and the original bondholder was the second developer. So,
So we'll table it. I think that's fine with the contractor, and then we'll bring some more information back after Chaplain reviews the statute.
No motion for that, correct?
Let's go ahead and do it. We did that last time, to be consistent, just a motion to
Okay.
table this.
So I'll need a motion to table this. The discussion of the Winmore bond and final paving.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have a discussion of Bell Grove drainage proposal.
And that is going to be tabled until the work session, pending further investigation.
Okay, so we'll need a motion for that then, too.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have discussion of communication request from Marvin Ridge Band Boosters.
All right.
Austin, I think I sent you this first.
Pursuant to your policy on communications, any outside requests need to be approved by you all. Not a formal vote, but just really to get your consensus to make sure you're okay with it. The Marvin Ridge Band Boosters are just requesting to install an event banner on our property. I have informed them that they do need to get guidance from Hunter on what is allowed. But they've also been notified they would be responsible for installing it, maintaining, and removing it at the appropriate times. So I'm just
And
asking,
they just asked for out front here, not
Yes.
the roundabouts?
they just asked for on our property. You do have a copy of that in your agenda packet if you want to see the original email, but I'm just asking for your opinion. Are you guys okay with them posting a banner on our property?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't care. That, it's for, Hunter, the ordinance says for events are allowed, right? Yeah, there's size and time, which okay.
All right, thank you. Next up, open topics. Do we have any?
Yes, I do.
Wayne?
I want Jill to open up her fine.
Wayne, you've got to get way closer to your microphone. I cannot hear you.
Okay, I'll get up. Jill, I'd like you to open back up your consent item on finance and the capital project, the greenways and trails. And let's talk about this. No, you can just read it if you got it there. Well, I'll read it. Capital projects, greenways and trails. Planned and projected money is only $42,927. I've heard tonight and heard other times of thousands of dollars that we're putting in the greenways and trails. Where's the rest of the money that these people are talking about? Does it exist? Or is it a figment of their imagination?
Who's they?
It was a guy who was spoken tonight, and some attorney said it wasting thousands of dollars.
So that's a tricky one to answer. What I can tell you is that you all adopted an ordinance for greenways and trails and allocated a certain amount of money to it. You get annual updates on the balances of that account, and we come to you for approval every time we spend it, because it is restricted for greenways and trails. So the 42,000 that we are currently talking about was for the no-rise engineering that we're doing on the trail, and that is the remaining balance in the capital greenways trails account as of today. Every year, well, for the last few years, you all have allocated during the budget adoption process, you've allocated just some amount of money to kind of pad that account each year. But this current no-rise study is going to use up the rest of the funds in it.
And the reason we're having this no-rise study is because of request of residents, correct?
That's a Christina answer.
No, anytime you construct
Okay.
in a floodway or floodplain, floodway, you have to have a no-rise if you're going to cross the floodway.
This is not related to some of the requests we've had about things that if we've mitigated an area that we have not mitigated correctly.
No, the reason we're conducting the no-rise is to determine if we can cross that floodway in the bridge that's being proposed or some other bridge that you all
Okay, and this
want to
is just
consider.
engineering money.
Yes, it would be engineering,
Okay.
just engineering.
I thought maybe we missed something here with all the thousands of dollars people were talking about we're spending on trails. And since we only show about $43,000. So I just want to make sure that I hadn't missed something. I think I missed it, but.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did have a quick question for Davey. How'd we fare over this last storm, just out of curiosity? Any issues? Because obviously, when they asked for me to proclaim a declaration of, what was it?
State of emergency?
Emergency.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I felt like, okay, we shut these roads off. I've communicated to everyone that we thought, but it didn't come till later. But it was still bad. Any major things that we need to be aware of?
No, sir, we didn't experience any major issues. We did not have to, we monitored the roads throughout the day for flooding issues. During the daylight hours while we were here, we did not notice any flooded roads inside Marvin. Now, we were made aware of the Marvin Road at the Union County, Mecklenburg County line had flooded. The county shut that road down, or DOT shut it down. Other than that, we had one tree or a large limb that broke loose that we had to remove, but we removed and disposed of it. The rest of the day we spent just monitoring and reporting any issues that came about. But it was pretty much a quiet day.
Good.
And I'll basically say that I witnessed personally him going up the street and down streets and all over the place. I mean, he was like, he went personally up and down my street about 2 or 3 times, and during the course of the day.
Our staff did that. Honestly, I was at home fighting COVID, so, but I'm much better now. But yes, our staff did a really good job monitoring the streets throughout the day. We expected to see some flooding, but we did not see any at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The season is still young.
All right, next up for review of action items.
Okay, we've got our direction on the communications request. We've tabled the Belgrove drainage proposal. We've tabled the Winmore bond. We've tabled the fee in lieu for the Heritage at Marvin Greenway. And we've got contracts to execute with ACRO, AMT, CRTPO, needs a document signed. That is really about it.
Okay, next up with the review of the Mayor Pro Tem list. What you got, Kim?
I'm good, thanks.
Nothing? All right. Council comments. We'll start with the remote person.
I'm good, thanks.
All right. Wayne?
We've talked about Davey and his staff and the rest of the staff with all the emergency stuff going on and just day-to-day items. I want to thank them, the deputies and the council for being on top of
all their work and what they need to know.
Jamie? Good?
Well, thank you again to staff and everybody, our officers, of course, but especially wanted to take a moment again to recognize Bob Nuncamp. I had the pleasure, before being elected to council in December, of working with him on PRG for all of those years. So I very closely got to watch his efforts in developing Marsh, developing the Angel Tree, for all of those other different accomplishments that you listed, and really just personally wanted to say how much I appreciated working with Bob all those years on the PRG board, and well deserving of the recognition that we gave him.
Andy?
Well, again, I was also privileged to serve with Bob on the PRG from the time he started until I got on council, and I can't say enough good things about Bob. He's been great. He's done such a great job with Marsh and PRG and everything that he's done for the village so far, and I'm looking forward to his involvement in things coming up, and I want to thank you to the staff. You guys are great. You guys have all had a lot on your plate lately, and appreciate all the extra effort. And thanks, deputies, for all your hard work, keeping us safe. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Bob. All that everybody has said. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I too want to just comment, Bob and I, he had always hit me. He always would hit me up since I had a 30-foot trailer to deliver the Christmas, so I get to play Santa with them. But he's really been an asset to the community, and can't thank him enough. And any municipality or village or town would love to have a guy like that. And I hear he's not going too far, so we'll keep him as busy as we can, but we appreciate his work. Thank you also for Union County Preview. I don't know if you guys know, I'm obviously still very involved. I still have one more child in a band at Marvin Ridge High School, and I would recommend all of you for that day when it comes up. It's in a couple weeks. That it's the beginning of the season for all the high school bands in Union County, and we host it every year, and it all happens at Marvin Ridge High School. So it's a good look at all the different bands, and some of them are pretty exciting to watch. And this year we'll see what we have with a lot of newbies coming in with Marvin Ridge. So shout out to the new director that Mrs. Latoya Johnson is taking over that, so we're anxious to see how that goes. And Mr. Ross also will be helping with that. One other thing, I meant to do this on open things, so maybe this is a quick answer. Construction start times, or what time? What's the ordinance here? 7?
Is it 7?
Week or weekends?
During the week? Does that include lawn mowing? And like mowing lawns?
That's separate.
It's not, okay, so they can start even earlier?
He's pulling up the ordinance.
What's that?
He's pulling up the ordinance.
And we can talk about it later, but it's not a big deal. I just was curious because I heard machines going on, and it was definitely commercial stuff going on.
And
It's before 6:30
where?
at Firethorn.
Oh. For the golf course?
Yes.
Golf course is completely different.
Okay.
Because in short, basically what the ordinance states is any normal operation of any commercial, whatever, if it's part of their normal operation, they're pretty much exempt.
Okay.
But in any other sense, if you were going to mow your yard, it'd be 7 a.m.
Okay.
So
just
that's
curious.
how I interpret this, because it basically says the
I've
noise resulting.
never heard them that early, but they were up this morning.
Yeah, it says the noise resulting for any normal and lawful operation of any industrial, commercial, or government enterprise.
Okay.
So that's how I would interpret it, but it's still something that we can request that they don't start till 7.
All right, thank you.
So that's all I had, and, but before we close, we're going to move into closed session. Does someone want to read that motion to move into closed session?
I'll make a motion to recess into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3 to consult with an attorney retained by the public body to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Kim, we will update you.
Yeah, can you guys excuse me, since I won't be
Yes.
there for the rest of the meeting?
Okay, yeah. Motion to excuse Kim Vandenberg? To excuse her for, okay, for she's coming back. You don't need one, you can go.
Oh, I don't need an excuse?
You're free to go.
Thank you, goodbye.
See ya. Bye. I just need a quick bio.
Oh, wait, I did. I have a file that says 2024.
Testing, okay. Joe, you were good to reconvene.
All right, I'd like to reconvene the regular meeting, August 13th, 2024. Show the time at 8:44 p.m. And I think after closed session, we came to an agreement, and we're going to have a statement that is read. And I'll have Jamie Lyon, Councilman Lyon, do that statement.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a Marvin Creek easement statement. A resident has submitted written materials which the village will include in this meeting's minutes regarding the Marvin Creek connector easement. The Marvin Creek HOA granted the connector easement to the village, which was recorded on January 8, 2024. This resident contends that the Marvin Creek HOA Board did not have proper legal authority to grant the connector easement and hired a lawyer to write a letter dated April 19, 2024 in support of his contention. The Marvin Creek HOA's attorney issued letters dated February 5, 2024, April 26, 2024, and June 25, 2024, setting forth the legal basis and authority for Marvin Creek HOA's board's grant of the connector easement. This dispute is between an individual owner or owners and their HOA board. If an individual Marvin Creek owner or owners believe that their HOA board lacked proper legal authority to execute and grant the connector easement, then such person or persons may seek redress in the courts to resolve that issue. As things stand, the connector easement has been fully executed and recorded, and the village will proceed to study and prepare to make proper use of the easement. If a lawsuit is commenced challenging the validity of the connector easement, then the village will refrain from performing any construction in the easement area until the judicial process resolves the dispute and a judgment is rendered determining the validity of the connector easement.
All right, so we need a motion to accept that or approve that
I'd
statement?
like to make a motion to move and adopt and implement this Marvin Creek easement statement as presented.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. With that, we come to a close, and I'll need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Who made that motion to adjourn? Me. Thank you, Andy. We just, live stream is over.